so this is the finished product. I skipped a lot of steps because I just have a lot to do today and I have to leave the house soon. So yeah, I don't have mascara on yet, but you basically watched me get here. An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. So thank you for coming back to my channel. Welcome to ReeaReads. This book was the catalyst for everything. It's the reason why I started reading again. It's the book that I tell everyone to pick up and read. I absolutely love this book. Super grateful for Tayari Jones. And if you watch my Newbie Booktag, you know that I learned about this book from the YouTuber Julesy. She actually did a review on this book. I watched the review and then about a year later I picked it up. And so this book was published in 2018. I read it in 2019. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's about roughly maybe 300 pages, I'll say. Okay, so it's a little over 300 pages as far as the page count. I just absolutely love this book. It's a stunning, epic love story, and the title is very interesting. I don't read the summary. I don't read anything about books before buying them typically because I want to just jump full into the story. So I don't want any spoilers, anything. Sometimes I feel like the summaries tell too much. I don't know. So actually, I just read today for the first time in the jacket of the book about newlyweds Celestial and Roy. And actually, I'm wearing my Georgetown sweater today because it's the first week of fall semester. And it's the first week of school for a lot of people. If you're going back to college or grad school, what have you, I'm wishing you Godspeed. I'm wishing you all the best this year. And I'm wearing this sweater because I have to show school pride, because this book is actually kind of like, it starts as like a college love story. So Celestial is the quintessential young black woman. She's a Spelmanite. Celestial actually attends Spelman College. And Roy, who ends up being her husband, he actually attends Morehouse College. So quintessential black young couple. Love them. If you understand the nuances of attending those two schools and Spell House and the relationship there and the camaraderie between, you know, having a brother and sister there when you are pinned, if you go to those institutions, then you get it. Shameless plug, Spelman is the top HBCU right now, so you should definitely look into donating to HBCUs because we need to retain our HBCUs. Absolutely. So from the beginning of the story, I love that because I'm like, oh, they're so cute. So Roy goes to Morehouse, Celestial goes to Spelman. Celestial and Roy, they meet through Andre. And years go by, you know, Roy is from Louisiana originally, Celestial, she's from Atlanta, and so they get married and they go to meet his parents. And there are a lot of themes in this story because you have a young couple, newlywed, a wife who has to deal with the fact that, you know, her husband is from the South and his mother is looking at her like, you know, you need to know how to cook and you need to be a Southern belle. I don't need you to be a mover and shaker from the city, but that's who her son fell in love with. And so although she was a distinguished and esteemed woman in her own right, and she did come from a more so wealthy family, his mother looked at her like, are you gonna give me a grandchild? Like, what are you gonna do? So it was really interesting. And so they actually go to Louisiana and meet Roy's parents, and they get into a fight because, you know, they're still newlyweds. They're trying to get to know each other. They're trying to really fill out the new space of marriage and what it means for them. And something happens in the book. And one of the themes that's introduced, so first we get the love, but the new theme that's introduced is how this story relates to criminal justice. And it's still very much a novel, but something happens to Roy, and Roy is actually arrested and he's incarcerated for 12 years. And it's just important to know when you get to that part of the story, pay attention to why it happened. And so in the Oprah Book Club set of questions, there's a question that asks, do you think the title is fitting, An American Marriage? And how does it relate to what happened to Roy? So Roy tells his wife, you know, this would never happen to you because you're a woman and I'm a black man. And so I'm actually behind bars for something that allegedly I didn't even do, but because of the color of my skin, you know, it doesn't matter that I'm a Morehouse man, it doesn't matter that I'm college educated, it doesn't matter that I am highly esteemed. They needed to assign a name to the crime, and it was just him. And so now they have different things that they have to consider in their marriage. Instead of just like, how are we gonna work with our dynamics in the house, how are we gonna work with our dynamics with you behind bars? And so Celestial, something happens in the book where there's a question behind whether or not she could conceive, and there was a conflict between his mother and her, because that was kind of a question. I won't reveal what actually happens, but she actually ends up being an artist who makes these dolls, and they're really intricate dolls, and she's an award-winning artist, and she's getting recognized and noticed for her work while behind bars. And so the book unfolds with letters between Roy and Celestial while he's incarcerated, and he actually finds out something relating to his paternal history while in prison, and it's very earth-shattering because his mom passes away while he's in prison. And so he meets someone in prison who kind of changes his entire identity. And so it's interesting because Celestial, remember, she can't conceive, and so she starts making her dolls. And so there's a question about, do you think the dolls, you know, are like children to her? Absolutely. I think her art and her work turned into her livelihood, and she almost showed this like maternal spirit toward it. So I think that kind of made up for her not being able to conceive originally. Now someone needs to take over, so I think Andre is honestly the one who steps in as that man in her life. And so in the book, she's writing back and forth, and for a while they actually stopped writing because the mystery behind conception and why they don't have a child is revealed. And so there's a conflict between the two of them. All the while, Celestial had her uncle, who is a great attorney. She had her uncle work on his case, and Roy actually gets early release. So Roy thinks he's actually surprising his wife, and he comes home, and there's another theme in the book about release back into society for those who are incarcerated, and recidivism, because Roy feels like, you know, I'm out of prison now and I don't know who I am, and I don't know what's going on in this world. Everything is so foreign to me. And so Roy actually meets someone, and I remember in Jules's review, she spoke specifically about who he meets and why that person related to him so closely. And it was so funny because pay attention to I'll say this, the woman that he meets and that he becomes vulnerable with while he's within that space where he's just been released from prison. He feels like he doesn't know his wife anymore. He feels like, you know, he was incarcerated for 12 years. He is college educated. He cannot go back to his financial past because now his reputation is severed. So he meets this woman, and this woman actually, and he gets close to her for a minute, but it's one of those things where it's like she really thought they had something, and he's like, no, I'm going to find my wife. And so he goes home to Atlanta, and even he's a stranger in his own house. Cue Tamia. Where's the Tamia song? He's a stranger in his own house because she's moved on. And so when you learn about what develops between Andre, the best friend, and Celestial, and then you see what happens with Roy and this new friend that he meets, it's really temporary though, I really want to know if you read the book, and if you do get a chance to read the book and come back and comment and let me know. I want to know if you think both of them kind of were justified in their actions. I don't think they were. And I mean, I understand why it happened that way, but I'm just really interested to know what you think. Do you think they both kind of, you know, were even with doing what they did? I don't think so. But it's a beautiful book, to say the least. And it's a timeless love story that touches on a lot of things, a lot of dynamics. There were dynamics with him, even him being a man who he made a name for himself. He had a career of his own, and even her parents kind of looked at him like, you know, well, we love you, but just because your parents kind of don't like our daughter, maybe we can look at you a certain way, because they were kind of wealthy. And I read this book so long ago. I think Tayari Jones plays a lot on implicit racial bias. I think she purposely left out the race of the person that caused Roy to be incarcerated for a reason. So I think that's very impactful. I have to say, I give this 5 stars completely. I think you should read it. Definitely. It's not that long. I think it's long to me, so at this point. But this was my absolute favorite book. I loved the way how the story played out. I really loved all of the characters. Everyone from Celestial to Roy. I don't really think any one party was wrong here. Actually, no. Okay, there's a difference between being wrong and me saying that I have compassion and I understand why someone did what they did. So I can say I understand why both parties. I'm not talking about Andre, because Andre, he needed to stay in his place. I understand why Roy did what he did. I understand why Celestial did what she did. But really, there were a lot of times in this book where everyone was in between a rock and a hard place. So I hope you find the time to read An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. As I said, go donate to HBCUs. Make sure you comment, rate, subscribe, and tell me what you think about this book, especially if you've read it. Tell me if you're going to pick it up, and follow me on Instagram at ReeaReads. Thank you.